Oh, my God. We're still riding the high after the Hornets acquired Collin Sexton yesterday. We hopped on for like almost an hour-long emergency podcast. We got some house cleaning for you. We have some new thoughts for you on Collin Sexton. What happens with Josh Okogie? The deadline to sign Josh Okogie is today. Do you waive him to create more cap space? A lot to get to. Awesome week. Jeff Peterson, you re-energized us. You re-energized the LOH podcast. Plenty more to come.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast. That does include YouTube. No big dub hat for Doug today, but I know that he's wearing the big dub hat in his heart. He might not have it on the YouTube channel that you can see, but I know that you feel like you're wearing it inside your soul right now with how excited we are that they got Collin Sexton just doing something to get better as a basketball team.
I'm extremely excited, and if you really want to see me wear the Big Dub hat, you can watch the live show that we posted on the podcast feed and on the YouTube channel yesterday when we celebrated this deal for Collin Sexton. But I can't wear it every day. You can't wear it out.
No, you can't.
It's got to be. It's a special thing. It's back in its rightful place behind me, and I'll pull it out again because, see, there's the thing. I don't want to wear it again because I think that would spoil Jeff Peterson. I don't want Jeff Peterson to feel like he just gets big dub after big dub for one move. I want more moves. And so, Jeff Peterson, you'll get another big dub hat, sir, when you make another move.
Doug Branson, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Also listen to him on Locked On NBA. Spread the good word that something special is happening here in the Queen City. I'm Walker Mail. You can listen to me on W. I don't know what I'm doing. Weston Walker is what I was going to say, I think.
WFNZ? You were
WFNZ, there? You can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Sports Radio 92.7 FM. Real quickly, I do want to tell you that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel as well. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So always a big shout out to FanDuel. I do want to discuss the live show a little more. I'm always going to remember the Collin Sexton move because we didn't articulate this yesterday, but the excitement was very real. Everyone was very excited that we were doing an emergency podcast. I was telling you, Doug, before we hopped on the mic, it's always nice when you have a joke of a tweet that gets, hundreds of likes or something. It gets a lot of play, it gets a lot of engagement. Okay, sweet. Joke landed, cool. Like when those take off, that's always a fun tweet. But you know what my favorite thing is yesterday is that I tweeted out that we're going to do an emergency pod because the Hornets acquired Collin Sexton, and that got a lot of engagement. And then once we got to YouTube and we're doing the live show, we set a record for Locked On Hornets. It's our show history record for most live viewers. 2,500 people at one time were tuning in to see what we were talking about. And all we did was acquire Collin Sexton. So, and I'm not even trying to rain on the parade at all because the parade is still bopping. We are still happy. But when we're this excited about acquiring Collin Sexton, it should go to show you how deprived we've been of moves that look like this. In fact, I know you asked that to your subscribers on Every Hornets Box Score, which it's also the numbers going up because people are thrilled with the moves that we've seen over the last week. So is this the best trade in terms of the Hornets getting better on the court? Because P.J. Washington for a first rounder, good trade. Terry Rozier, my God, excellent trade. Now, that trade could get even better by the time that we figure out the protections on it. But in terms of getting better on the court, Doug, I know you've done some of the history on this. This is the best trade since ... fill in the blank.
Yeah, those tear down trades were great. But I asked Every Hornets Box Score, what's the best build-up trade that we've had since this move? Because we have been flush with Brad Wanamaker and Cash and, Reggie Jackson.
It's the first one for Mitch. I'm sorry. It's my favorite fact is that when Mitch Kupchak came over, and we knew that he was going to have to operate differently in Charlotte than he did in LA, just very different markets, different situation. Cool, we gave him that. But when the first trade in season that you make is, I think, a year and a half into your tenure, maybe 2 years, and the first trade you make is Brad Wanamaker for cash considerations. It's the first one. It's like one of my favorite under-discussed facts about Mitch Kupchak. Sorry, go ahead.
No, and then they, 17 times traded for Reggie Jackson and then released him, like never played a minute for the Hornets. Like that's what we've been dealing with for many, many years. And then, of course, the Miles Plumlee trade during the Cho era that was just disastrous. You wished he would have been a little bit more considerate about the trades that they did around that time. So when is the last time that they had a build-up trade where they were already at a certain level and then you acquire talent that's going to make you better, which I think we can all agree that Collin Sexton, whatever he was in Utah, he could probably be more than that on a team that's actually considering winning, which I think the Hornets are going to do now. And I think he could be even better than that. I had to go all the way back, and someone mentioned this in the Every Hornets Box Score chat, to like Stack Jack and the Bobcats when they traded him. I think it was for Vlad Rad and Raja Bell, and they acquired Stack Jack and ended up making the playoffs with that Larry Brown squad. It's a long time.
Was that Maggette going out? Is that right? Was Maggette right before the Stack Jack and Gerald Wallace era? We'll have to look it up, but I was trying to think if that's what happened. Yeah, I couldn't think of anything. Well, it's funny. You go back to it was supposed to be a teardown trade, but the Hornets got better in the teardown when the Hornets traded Gordon Hayward to the Thunder and they got Trey Mann and all these rotation pieces back. And then the very next game, Steve Clifford sits all of our old bench pieces and just plays all of the former members of the Thunder because he finally had NBA rotation players. And so that was another way where they got better on the court. It has not reached this level of excitement that it draws from Hornets fans.
No, because I think this deal. In fact, I did a free agency primer on every Hornets box score, and my top two needs were veteran backup point guard because of not only LaMelo Ball's health, although that is a big deal. He's missed a lot of games, and so if you were considering competing, having a veteran backup point guard who has been somewhat durable, you think would be a priority. But also just because I think, particularly somebody who can play combo guard and play alongside LaMelo Ball. I do remember Jeremy Lin. I remember how valuable he was to that last playoff team and how those kinds of players, and the Hornets knew the value of that too because they were willing to make Trey Mann part of that role before he hurt his back. So that was one. And then downhill scoring because Brandon Miller did not want to go to the rim last season. LaMelo Ball wanted to but couldn't. And so having just some kind of guard that could get to the rim and put pressure on a defense is going to help Con Knippel hit corner three-pointers. It's going to help all of these other players. It's going to help Brandon Miller hit three-pointers from the wing when that ball comes back out. So just to knock both of those things out in one fell swoop, and two things, you don't spend any more of your cap because it's essentially contractually 1-for-1. You don't put extra years on your books because it's expiring, which means at the trade deadline, if Collin Sexton's been playing well, but you're kind of on the fence and you want to go ping pong ball chasing again, please God, no, I don't want that. But if you did want that, you have that flexibility.
Yeah, it's great on a bunch of fronts. By the way, Raja Bell and Vladimir Radmanovic, they were traded for Steven Jackson and AC Law, Texas A&M legend, by the way. But Jackson, who was dealt to Milwaukee following the 2010-11 season in a 3-team deal, that also featured the Kings landing Corey Maggette and Bismack Biyombo in Charlotte. So there's the connection there. Last one, in trades that made us better. There's an answer, I think, that you could go to. People aren't going to like it. I don't think it makes it any less true. Gerald Henderson and Noah Vonleh for Nick Batum. That helped us. That helped us quite a bit. And it was pay the max season for Batum, and he was going to get that max money from Dallas or somewhere, at least for one season in a key playoff year. Nick Batum helped us get there, but we don't have to say more good things about Nick if we don't want to.
But you're right. On. I mean, just the facts of the matter, we don't know how it's going to work out long-term with Collin Sexton either, but just the facts on the ground were that they were a worse team pre-Nick and became a better team with Nick and then became a worse team again.
All right, so there's a look back at history. We have more Collin Sexton news to share with you, though. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
One question we may not have asked yesterday as much on the emergency pod that we'll ask today. Here we are excited about having a backup point guard. That's legitimate. Does Collin Sexton just start a whole bunch of games alongside LaMelo next year? Should we be looking into that a little more? That's still to come, LOH. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports, they're in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You've already followed the action without FanDuel. Why not make it a little more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Don't get sunburned. God, that doesn't sound fun. Just bet, baby. Make some money. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups. The app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions as well and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. More Locked On Hornets ahead. All right, so some house cleaning stuff that I got wrong or maybe we weren't a little clear about yesterday. So just real quickly, we've had the back and forth about KJ Simpson's contract. He did sign a two-way contract for 2 years. It does not guarantee him a roster spot, by the way. I mean, that you can drop somebody very easily who is on a two-way deal, but he is on a two-way contract for this upcoming season. Again, does not mean he will get a guaranteed roster spot. So just trying to figure out the logjam in the backcourt. KJ Simpson still, I think, is a good name that they'd put on the chopping block. The other thing, I got it wrong with the contract yesterday with Collin Sexton. He's on an expiring as well. So it's not like just trading for the exact money going after Nurkic. If you're Ainge, you're actually going for basically the exact same contract. So Collin Sexton and Nurkic both have the same, they're both on an expiring deal. They're both making like almost to the cent $19 million on an expiring contract, which only it emphasizes our argument as to why would Utah do this. I was actually trying to find the angle as why the Ainges would do this over in Utah, but the fact that Collin was an expiring contract as well, now it lessens the sense for what Utah is doing. So just wanted to make those two things clear that might not have been clear yesterday.
I think it's pretty clear why Utah did this. They want to get worse because they have to give up their pick if they fall outside of the top 8. So they're going to do whatever's possible. And there's a set of players there, Lowry, Markkanen, Sexton. There's one other guy there that was like kind of a vet when they were sort of in the middle of doing like, are we going to rebuild?
Jordan Clarkson is over there. Maybe that's your name.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are a couple of guys that essentially just had to watch at the end of the season. And I just don't think they want to go through that again, where you have guys, and they got fined, I think, by the NBA at one point, like $100,000.
They did. Yes.
Yeah, so they don't want to have to go through all of that again. They've got to get, if they want to be bad, they've got to be bad, and they've got to get rid of the players that are legitimately good that the NBA would say, hey, you got to play those guys. So Lowry's probably going, Clarkson's probably going, and they'll focus on Collier and Ace Bailey. Ace Bailey's going to need some shots. You don't want Collin Sexton soaking up all the shots.
That's what I was thinking. So that's my answer. I thought about it after the pod, just trying to organize all the other thoughts. And that's the one that I also came to is, do they just want to take Collin Sexton shots away and give them all to Ace Bailey as they're trying to figure out how their marriage is going to look? He did report he's there. Ace Bailey is with Utah now, so we're going to dodge that story as we start.
That's right. If you're that's such a good point, the marriage part of it, because if you are starting out in a marriage that's a little bit rocky, the last thing you want to do is have a baby or get a dog, because you don't want to add all of those. You got to focus on you and your partner. Yeah. You can't add those extra complications. It's not going to help, folks. It's just going to lead to the big D, and I don't mean Dallas.
What do you mean? I don't want to know. So when we ask
conspiracy, do the conspiracy thing before we forget. You have a conspiracy
thing. Yeah. Well, this was helped. This is more of an assist, me, facilitating some conspiracies I've seen on Twitter. But okay, so if you're Danny Ainge, or is it Eric Ainge? That's the former Austin. Eric Ainge, God, is a former Tennessee quarterback of like the early 2010s.
Your brain is so broken. Your brain is so broken by sports radio.
Eric Ainge. Oh my God. Shout out to Eric Ainge, who I also get confused for Eric Dungy, who was like an underrated quarterback for Syracuse. The Eric, the G's, the orange, all of it. It's discombobulating. Okay. So talking about the trade here from the Angels. I'll just call them the Angels, right? The other thing is, okay, so if you're the Angels, do you call Jeff Peterson and say, you could trade back? You could go to Washington if you want to. You could see what New Orleans is doing up there at 7, maybe even Brooklyn at 8. That's fine if you want to. I can tell you what's not going to happen. Con Knippel's not going to be there if you move back. We're going to take him. So just letting you know, if you trade back to 6, 7, or 8, we're going to take Con Knippel once they trade up to 4 and get Ace Bailey, who is our guy. He's the guy that we want. We'll take Con because we don't think there's much of a difference between him and Trey Johnson and Jeremiah Fears. Utah, they're going to love Con Knippel over here in Salt Lake. We can make this work fine. So go ahead, trade back if you want to, but I wouldn't. And sure enough, the Hornets decide, we don't want to lose our guy. We like Con Knippel well enough, and we're just going to take him here at 4. The Jazz, they get their guy eventually after like 36 hours of all the hullabaloo that Ace Bailey might not show up. He eventually shows up and maybe everybody's happy. At least that's the facade, quote unquote, if you don't believe it to be true.
Well, and so the conspiracy theory here is that there was some discussions between the teams about, look, don't trade back. And so we'll you take Con, we'll take Ace, and then we'll figure we got this Collin Sexton problem we have to figure out. We'll figure it out with you. We can figure it out with a lot of other people because he's still valuable, but we want to figure it out with you. So don't make this complicated. That kind of makes sense, but it kind of doesn't, because I think if you're Utah, you just do the threat and you just let the threat be the threat.
Right.
And you don't need to do all of this extra like Collin Sexton stuff. Now, what I could think happened is that in the discussions with Washington and Utah, these guys like to talk about a lot of things. And I think the Sexton thing probably came up and they said, okay, well, let's readdress that when this whole draft situation is over. And so, and not complicating, even if they didn't discuss it directly, not complicating Utah's bid to get Ace Bailey. It's all about relationship building. Look, you didn't bleep me here, so we can still talk about Sexton. If you had bleeped me, then don't call me anymore. This is the whole thing with Pelinka now. It's like if Jeff Peterson calls Pelinka, he's a fool. Like you bleeped, Pelinka bleeped us, okay? Mm-hmm. So you don't bleep us, we'll deal with you. I think that's probably maybe that's like half a conspiracy theory.
Right. Well, and we just saw the video of Rich Paul on the phone with Matt Ishbia, and they're talking about how to get Malawach at number 10 because Rich Paul and Clutch, they want to get Malawach to what they deemed a good situation for Malawach, which is number 10 to Phoenix, even if it means sacrificing money. Matt Ishbia said, we like Malawach a lot. Can you get this done? Can you call other teams and make sure he falls to us? Yeah, I'll see what I can do. So agents, especially Clutch, we know about the theories, not even theories, just straight up stories with Clutch forcing Anthony Davis to get to LA. Like they were quite successful in that endeavor to pair Clutch teammates together in LeBron and Anthony. We saw that video over the weekend. Go ahead. You got other thoughts?
Well, this is why I said during the live show, Jeff Peterson ain't no Mitch, because I think Mitch Kupchak was too just like traditional down the line,
rule
not
following.
exploring.
He was a goody two shoes.
I think so. Like he would have never gotten into these gray areas of like, let's kind of figure this out and do backdoor dealings or anything like that. And I just don't think that was in his. I think he's just old school. I don't think that was in his thought process. And I don't and also I don't know that there was like the urgency from the ownership, because creativity comes from you're put in a box. Okay, how do I get out of that box? But you have to be given agency to get out of the box, and I don't think that was coming from ownership. So it's a two-part. When I said Jeff Peterson ain't no Mitch, it's a two-part problem. It was a Mitch problem and it was a Michael Jordan problem. The Hornets have neither of those problems right now, and instead they're finding solutions.
So I don't want to go to the last segment quite yet. I want to introduce this topic in the second segment. Maybe we can spend a little more time on it. The other thing that we didn't discuss nearly as much yesterday, Doug, is if Collin Sexton just opens up the season as a starter alongside LaMelo and then plays majority of the season as a starter alongside LaMelo. I do think it's worth a conversation. It's what people are talking about on social media because he has gone back and forth with the Jazz, with Cleveland. He has been, he's listed as a wing on Cleaning the Glass. He's a PG, SG on ESPN. Keontae George also splitting that time up. You have all sorts of different backcourt players in Utah, like Isaiah Collier is one. My guy that I liked is at Sensabaugh. That's a Hey, Walker, that's your guy text that I'll get from Doug once the Hornets play the Jazz the 2 times a year. So he's making $19 million. If you care about payroll, you care about salary, the contract would deem him as a starter, at least with this team, making among the most amount of annual value. I could see it. The thing is, it just makes too much sense, in my opinion, if you still have Josh Green on the roster and they want to try to focus defensively. Because I've seen a lot of people just saying Con Knippel is going to start. I don't think Con's going to start. I don't think that's how they operate. I think that you have enough backcourt help, especially if you bring Trey Mann back. I know that they invested a 4th overall pick in Con Knippel. We didn't see Brandon Miller start when he came in as the 2nd overall selection. I just don't think he starts at the beginning of the year. Could be wrong. I don't think so. So I think really the answer, the question is it going to be Josh Green or Collin Sexton? Now, I know that makes a lot of people throw up, but this is what Charles Lee does, man. He played Josh Green like 30 minutes a game last year. He clearly values him for what he can do defensively alongside a LaMelo. Regardless of whether Collin starts, though, here's what I do want to emphasize. Even if he starts, you are still using him as your 2nd primary ball handler outside of LaMelo. And that's what I want to emphasize. Collin Sexton is going to be still your backup point guard, where Doug, I don't know if I want any minutes really. We can introduce Trey Mann here, but I don't want really any minutes this season as long as both of those guys are healthy, where one of them is not the guy initiating the offense. I want those minutes staggered. I want to see minutes with them on the court. If you want to introduce Trey Mann as that lead ball handler, fine, here and there. But I want LaMelo and Collin to be the 2 point guards this year.
Yeah, if Collin Sexton starts, who guards the best guard or wing player every night?
Right.
And do you trust? Because I don't
think
trust
they would
Collin
say
Sexton.
Collin. I
don't trust Collin.
Right.
He's an effort defender, but he's not a plus defender. Let's just kind of get that. He can score, and he's an effort defender, but he is not a plus defender. He showed that in Cleveland, and he showed that in Utah. And maybe there can be some development. He's still youngish. Like, there can be some development there. Maybe Charles Lee gets a hold of him and turns him around. But in 1 year, that's a tough ask, okay? So at the beginning of a game, your goal should be to take their best player and disrupt them enough in those first 8 minutes to give yourself a chance to, keep them from going 40. And so I think if Josh Green is healthy, they're going to go with Josh Green. And I'll say this, I was not a fan of Josh Green's production last season. Maybe one of the least fans of his production amongst the Charlotte Hornets media, okay?
Yeah.
I'm much more comfortable with Josh Green scoring 2 to 4 points if you've got Collin Sexton, Trey Mann, Con Knippel, some combo of them coming off the bench and scoring. The problem with his 2 points, 0 points, 4-point games is that you had KJ Simpson. You had people that couldn't score coming off the bench, and it's like, Josh Green, you're a veteran. We need you to be aggressive right now. But if they've got Collin Sexton, if they've got Trey Mann and Con Knippel, now all of a sudden Josh Green, actually, I'm super comfortable with you just locking down on defense and doing nothing else.
Jeff Peterson has done such a good job this week. He made Doug into a semi-believer in Josh Green. He's a miracle
It's all
worker.
contextual.
Oh my
it's
God.
all contextual.
What's going on? All right, we have another segment to go. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
Center options, we still need one. Okay, like, hey, we do this 100 times out of 100. We're excited. We need some centers. Nurkic is out now. I love Kalkbrenner. I love Moussa Diabate. Who are the center options out there? We go through them coming up next. As we often do, we have not followed the bullet points. We have not followed the rundown to a T today. Trade grades, they're positive. I won't tell you everything about the trade grades. We're going to have a few more come in today, and then we'll talk about the trade grades tomorrow and what some of these national NBA pundits think about what the Hornets did, acquiring Collin Sexton and a 2030 second round pick in exchange for Nurkic, which we should mention, by the way. I think Ben H. UNCC. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your handle, man. I just wanted to give you credit for making this point, but I thought it was a good one. That Jazz second round pick probably going to be damn good. Right? I mean, that's something that we should, or is there something that I have not seen in terms of protections? Yeah,
well, there's a swap element to it. I'll look it up, but it's gotcha. The better. It's either the better or the worse of. I gotta look it up.
Okay,
but
so
there is a swap thing that could make it worse than a normal
gotcha.
Jazz unprotected.
I was gonna say, if it was an unprotected Jazz second round pick, then okay, now are we talking about like another Kalkbrenner, Sion James type of player? Some protections, then yeah, that would make a little more sense, considering we don't think this trade makes a lot of sense from a Jazz front anyway. Okay. Center options, we need them around here, Doug. We only have Musa, we only have Kalkbrenner. We needed another center when we thought we still had Nurkic on the roster. We still felt like we needed to go look at some of those big guy options. Who are some of those guys that you think could be out there that the Hornets might be interested in, and would you sign off on the Hornets being interested in such player?
Well, the name that a lot of people are talking about this morning is DeAndre Ayton, and I did preview this a little bit during the live show because I thought that Portland had to do something with their center rotation after drafting Young Hansen with their 16th pick. They have Donovan Clingan already, who they used a high-ish draft pick on a couple of seasons ago, and so now, and they had DeAndre Ayton, and so I said one of those guys has to go, Ayton or Clingan, and they end up buying out DeAndre Ayton. And so the question is, should the Hornets make a play for a guy that has like top tier draft pedigree, but obviously has issues with effort and availability? And my answer is no, absolutely no. Please God, no, don't do that. It would go against everything that Jeff Peterson has talked about and Charles Lee has talked about in terms of Hornets DNA and what they look at in terms of character. And they talked about it again when they discussed drafting the 4 players that they drafted, that it was about character, that it was about intel. And it's also about production. It's not as if DeAndre Ayton was his moniker, Dominatin', for Portland. Here's what Mike Richmond of Locked On Blazers, whose name, it's not that I couldn't remember Mike Richmond's name, because I love Mike. He's the past first point guard, UNC grad, one of my favorite guys on the network.
I'm going to say, I think a North Carolina guy, I was about to say.
I forgot his name because I didn't forget his name. I mix up his name because I get Mitch Richmond in my head because my brain is NBA broken in the same way that Walker's brain is NFL or college quarterback broken.
God, it's just we don't need to put any it's just broken. You don't need to put any qualifiers.
So I apologize, Mike. But this is what Mike said today on Locked On Blazers. He was pretty bad in year 1. He was pretty bad in year 2. He struggled in Portland. Like his production wasn't there. 95 games in 2 seasons, wasn't available. This is what a season in review article from Blazers Edge said about DeAndre Ayton. His nickname is Dominatin', but it's more like can't get you to Mayton, or with this year's injuries, day to Dayton. The Hornets don't need that.
Good.
They don't need any more day to Dayton.
So I was such a huge fan of DeAndre Ayton coming out of college. I thought he was going to be the real deal. I was one where, okay, we could have a conversation about Luka or Marvin Bagley at 2. That's where Luka should have gone. But there were other people that said Luka should go number 1 overall, and I was not one of those people. I was like, nah, man, take DeAndre Ayton. This guy is extremely skilled. I love his game. He'll always be one of those players that I never give up on. I saw too many good things in the postseason run for Phoenix, even if he wasn't a star. I'm here to tell you that this is a bad idea. Here, one thing I've constantly mentioned this offseason, and what I've constantly mentioned talking about this front office, is that they go after a type with every freaking move that they make. Every single one. They are 100 out of 100. They have a perfect hit rate, okay? If they went after DeAndre Ayton, that would be the outlier and the type of player that they've been seeking this entire time. No, thank you. Let's just keep the good times rolling here. Let's continue to go after the culture fits. Let's continue to go after the guys that make practice hard every day so that the games are easier. I do not believe that to be DeAndre Ayton, as much as I'm tantalized by the talent as much as anyone, Doug. Like, I love me some Ayton in terms of the skill set that he is supposed to have. We haven't seen it blossom. Anyways, I'm out on DeAndre Ayton.
Brooke Lopez, I think, is out of reach. I'd love to have a big physical shooting center, but I think he's going to go to another team. Thomas Bryant, the center for your favorite team, the Indiana Pacers, did a little bit of floor spacing, but couldn't get on the floor for that Pacers team. Now he could get on the floor probably a little bit easier.
He can shoot
in Charlotte.
He can be a shooter.
Energy, hustle guy, right? I mean, Thomas Bryant gets a lot of love. And when they traded for him in the regular season action, he did provide a boost to an Indiana Pacers team that was sort of struggling at that time. So he does bring that energy. So I think he would be a culture fit. Luke Cornett is another name to monitor, I think. The Boston Celtics center, 7'2", 28 years old. Fringe rotation player, but definitely was effective in his minutes for Boston. They valued his contributions. But yeah, I mean, limited defensively, I think, switch heavy. If you're switch heavy, the Hornets, they've shown sort of like a mix between wanting to be switch heavy probably in the future, but recognizing that they have to play drop. So, struggles to rebound, that could be an issue. But like, you're not going to get a top tier center unless you make a big sign and trade for Jared Allen or Miles Turner. And I just don't know that. To me, if they don't want to skip steps,
if
that's their whole thing, those two moves would be skippy.
Little peanut buttery, little skippy. I would say there's one name that I'm looking at quite a bit here, and it's Day'Ron Sharpe. Speaking of Tar Heels, Day'Ron Sharpe is out there now. After Michael Scotto reported yesterday, the Nets declined to tender Sharpe's 1-year, $6 million qualifying offer. So he's an unrestricted free agent. He averaged 8 points and 6.5 rebounds in over 18 minutes per game this past season. Brooklyn does hope to re-sign him with cap space flexibility. They have a lot, but how much do you want to allocate to Day'Ron Sharpe? Do they get in trouble by having a lot and then having a ton to spend, but then they spend too much on him? Maybe he wants a change of scenery as an unrestricted free agent. He comes to Charlotte, and a couple of people are saying really nice things about him. I'll say that. Nikias Duncan, he says, big fan of Day'Ron, monster on the offensive glass. He's a solid screener. He's a slick passer with a little more upside there, I'd think. So I think that actually helps replace what Nurkic provided for you, Doug, because Nurkic was a playmaker out of the post. I actually think that was his best offensive skill, was throwing it to him. Remember when the Lakers double teamed him for was it 20 minutes in the second half, and JJ Redick just kept doing it and Nurkic kept making him pay? So if Day'Ron has a little more play, you are missing a little of that with Mark, by the way. Like with all his faults, you're missing that. So Kalkbrenner, not all that much of a playmaker. Musa, same thing. I'd like to have a ball mover at the 5 spot. I think it opens up a lot, especially now that you have a bunch of shooters. So if there's something there with Day'Ron, who also hits the offensive glass, which Mark Williams was fantastic at, like a legitimately extremely positive skill compared to all other NBA centers, you might just be able to replace a little of what you had with Mark, a little of what you had with Nurkic. And final thing, J-Nay made a good point on Twitter too. He said there was exactly one player who finished the season as a Brooklyn Net who had a positive net rating last year. Day'Ron Sharpe. He's the guy. I think that's the person that I would want first and foremost.
Yeah, so would you rather spend $6 million on Day'Ron Sharpe or $7 million on Trey Mann? We haven't got a confirmation yet. We haven't gotten a confirmation because I don't think they've extended the qualifying offer to Trey Mann.
So a couple things. We have not heard any of that. So you're right. If it's 6 and 7 million, then we still have a little, even tiny bit left over for the mid-level exception. Like, we can just get both if we want, honestly, with the 6 and 7, but I don't think that they would sign for that. And the other thing is we got to figure out what's going to happen with Josh Okogie real quickly, just for an update, because today is the deadline.
Just keep him. He's wing deep. They still need wing defense. Honestly, like with Collin Sexton, I want wing defense now. Trey Mann doesn't give you, he doesn't give you that to the level that Okogie does. I would rather spend $7.7 million to go ahead and just guarantee Josh Okogie. It becomes an expiring. Just do that. I mean, Trey Mann, salute, but they need wing defense.
The Hornets have until today to waive Okogie if they choose to. But if they decide not to waive him, his contract will become fully guaranteed for the upcoming season. I think I'm with you. I love Okogie. Trey Mann, here's what I like about Trey. I actually do think he's fun defensively, and I think he's good defensively, where maybe not point of attack. I know you can play through him, but he's just a heady defensive player in my opinion. But think about how fun it would be. It's just a lot of moving parts for a defense to deal with. A Collin Sexton, a Trey Mann, a LaMelo Ball, a Con Knipple, just all out there moving the basketball, moving around, having some playmaking with all of them. Even Collin Sexton, who's worked on it. It seems like they're developing an identity in that regard offensively, Doug. It's a little pacery, where the ball just pop, 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 pop. Everybody can shoot a little bit. It's really tough for the defense to react. So if you can bring Trey Mann in on, I don't know what that deal would look like. Let's call it 8, 9, 10. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see.
So they would be making plays for the Hornets. They would be making a lot of plays for the other team. That is the problem because they don't have a Nimhart. They don't have a Neesmith. Like both of those guys were doing some of the things you were talking about, but they could also scramble back to the other end and stop something from happening for the other team. And so that's what, whether it's Okogie or guaranteeing that deal and moving it out, I think they obviously need to look at something at the center position. Playmaking kind of important, but I think if you get Grant Williams back and he's healthy, you can do a little bit of that from the post. We saw that when he was healthy for the little bit of time there. So I'm not as worried about that. I just think, Day'Ron Sharpe, that could be interesting, but they still have to, if they want to compete this season in an Eastern Conference that is going to be a little bit weaker, I think they still need to find someone that can come off the bench. Particularly, I don't know what this whole Josh Green situation is with the shoulder surgery. Like, is he going to be out? Is he going to be back by the time the regular season rolls around? Is he going to be out a couple of months? What's the deal there? I don't know. Particularly if he's out, they've got to have some answer defensively, or they're going to be giving up a lot of points.
Last thing on that, not saying you want to rely on it. If they want to bring back Okogie, I'll be happy with it. I love what Okogie did. Can you depend on an older super senior rookie, Sion James, to just come in and help right away? Like he's 23, and that was his role even as a shooter. He can even give you something a little bit more from a shooting standpoint than what Okogie can, at least what he did at Duke and what he did at Tulane. But that's a lot to ask. But like maybe he becomes Jalen Wells. Maybe that's what he becomes. That would be fantastic.
6 p.m.
Oh,
we're going to find out. We're going to find out at 6 p.m. or sometime after. We
were talking about fun issues. We were talking about fun decisions to make. We were, do we put Sion in there like in a positive way? Do we go after Trey Mann to put with all of these like fun guards that just move the basketball and can do a whole bunch of stuff? It's a glorious time here in Charlotte Hornets land. Locked On Hornets, thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast. That includes YouTube. Go be one of the many subscribers to everyhornetsboxscore.com. Doug is writing about all of the positive vibes over there. Also listen to Locked On NBA. Make sure you make that your second listen after you listen to Locked On Hornets. And then tune into the radio every once in a while. 92.7 FM, you can hear me and Wes on Wes and Walker from 12 to 3 p.m. every single weekday. We're going to be breaking down the trade again today. Also, I'm hoping to have one or two of the second round selections on the show. Trying to get Sion, trying to get Ryan Kalkbrenner, maybe both today and tomorrow. We'll see, but looks pretty promising that we'll have a second rounder on our show today to interview. And you can go check that out. Liam McNeely had an interview with him, WFNZ.com. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Who knows what Jeff could be cooking, but we'll be here to talk more about it.
Jeff, that Big Dub hat, it's waiting on you.